Right now on Upfront.
Decision made.
I'm announcing that I will not be running for a third term.
Democratic Governor Tony Evers not seeking re-election, ending weeks of speculation.
I wish him well and looking forward to what's next.
Now the sprint to get in.
I have an announcement. I'm running for governor.
The potential candidates quickly lining up. This Sunday, we're covering it all. With us, Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Devin Remaker, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, who's already in, Charles Franklin with the instant analysis. Then, World Cup countdown. Now, less than a year from the matches starting right here in the U.S.
There's no reason why Milwaukee can't be a World Cup destination.
Alex Lasry, the former Bucks executive and U.S. Senate candidate, now the CEO of the New York-New Jersey Host Committee, and he's here with us. And taking off.
We are going to modernize ATC.
Transportation Secretary and former Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy in Wisconsin. The major changes coming to the nation's air traffic control system now underway, and Duffy overseeing it all.
And if it doesn't happen, I can guarantee you the president will fire me.
Inside the Wisconsin stop, and our questions moments away.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The race is on after Democratic Governor Tony Evers announced he will not seek re-election. Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez launching her bid not even 24 hours after. The field of potential candidates this weekend exploding, and we'll get to it all. The governor ending weeks of speculation Thursday, releasing a pre-recorded video message announcing his decision around the noon hour.
For 5 decades, my family has sacrificed to give me the gift of service. They're my world, and I owe it to them to focus on doing all the things we enjoy and love doing together. It's why, Wisconsin, I'm announcing that I will not be running for a third term. I'm so humbled to be your governor. This is the best job I ever had.
Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez quickly entering the race Friday. She's standing by. Others this weekend considering a bid include Attorney General Josh Kaul, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson, State Senator Kelda Roys, and former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. All right, with that, let's bring in Devin Remaker, the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Hey, Devin, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
When you and I talked just a couple weeks ago, you said you were hoping, you were praying the governor would run for re-election. Give me your thoughts on his decision to not seek a third term.
Well, maybe I should have lit a candle or something too. But no, I think that Governor Evers has certainly led this state through such an incredible amount of challenges. His decision to spend more time with family is one that he has certainly earned. And I know that the Democratic Party is going to be ready to support its nominee next August, once we know who that is, to make sure that we win the governor's mansion in November.
Devin, as you know, this opened the field like almost immediately. We're seeing potential candidates come out and saying, I'm considering, I may run, there's a possibility I'm going to run. What are you going to watch from afar from the state party perspective as this primary now heats up and plays out?
In a lot of ways, we'll be focused on what we've been focused on this entire time, which is organizing year-round, communicating a message that reaches every corner and every part of the state, urban, rural, and suburban, and making sure that we have a campaign operation that is ready to go as soon as we have the nominee. That's up for the voters to decide. The party's going to be neutral in this process, but we really look forward to working with whoever it is to deliver for working families in Wisconsin next November.
From a fundraising perspective, and as you look ahead to November, is it better for the party if there's a massive primary or just a couple of candidates?
I think that primaries are a healthy exercise within democracy and within our party. I think it's going to produce a stronger nominee. And I think that at the end of the day, the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, our candidates are going to have the resources that we need to compete up and down the ballot next year.
Does this make it more difficult for Democrats to win in November, the fact that Governor Evers is not running for re-election?
Well, I certainly would have loved to have partnered with Governor Evers and built that winning operation once again together. I really think that at the end of the day, the Democratic Party of Wisconsin has an experienced set of elections where we have been able to deliver victories, even if we don't know who our nominee is at the outset. And I'm confident that we'll continue to be a powerhouse next year.
Devin Remaker, the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Devin, thank you.
Thank you.
Democratic Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, the first to officially enter the race, doing so quickly Friday, releasing her campaign video going after President Trump and the Republican-controlled legislature. The Lieutenant Governor joins us now. Lieutenant Governor, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm first curious, did the governor give you a heads up about his decision, and what was that conversation like with him?
He did. He did give me a heads up that he was going to retire. And the conversation with him was, I am just so grateful for his leadership. He has done amazing things for Wisconsin. He has set us up for success. And I can't wait just to knock it out of the park with what he's done.
Did you ask for his endorsement? Do you anticipate receiving his endorsement in the primary?
That's really going to be up to him. I would certainly welcome it if he chooses to endorse. But I do believe I'm the best candidate for the job, and so just really excited to be able to run the race and introduce myself to people and let people know, what I'm going to be doing as governor.
You were obviously well aware of the potential other Democratic candidates who will enter this race. Is this going to be a race to the left, a race to see who will be the most liberal on the ticket?
I don't think so. I think what we're all going to do is tell them what our values are and what we're going to do as governor. I bring extensive leadership skills in the private industry. I'm a nurse by background. Healthcare is an area of expertise for me. And I have been out of political office for more than I've been in it, which not everybody can say. And so we're going to continue to talk about our values. We're going to talk about what we want to do as governor, and then the voters get to make their decision.
The governor reached compromises with the Republican-controlled legislature on a number of issues over his tenure, whether you look at the shared revenue bill, the Brewers bill, and the most recent state budget. Would you have signed this budget as governor?
So the governor did the best that he could with a Republican-led legislature. The budget that the governor and I put out is not the budget that he signed eventually. He did the best that he could. Can we do better? Absolutely. Which is why in 2026, we have an opportunity to flip the legislature, the state Senate, and the state assembly. And then we can get across these priorities, being able to fully fund our public schools, being able to bolster health care, lower costs for working families in Wisconsin. So that is what I'm focused on moving forward.
Are you saying you wouldn't have signed that budget?
I'm saying this is the best budget that we could get at that point in time. I mean, that's what's really challenging with a Republican-led legislature that is uninterested in making sure that they bolster working families across Wisconsin.
In your launch video on Friday, you called President Trump a maniac. You went after the Republican-controlled legislature. Is that going to be your approach and your message over the next year and a half?
I mean, the proof's in the pudding here. The budget that they have put up at the federal government is hurting Wisconsin families. It is hurting Wisconsin small businesses. It is hurting Wisconsin farmers. It is hurting everybody across the state. These Medicaid cuts that they have put in that budget is going to be devastating for healthcare, particularly in rural parts of Wisconsin. And so, yes, they're going to have to defend what they are voting for, what they're supporting, and the fact that it hurts Wisconsin families.
Finally, take me on the campaign trail over the next year. How do you win this Democratic nomination? What does your campaign look like on the ground?
All 72 counties. I am going to be going to all 72 counties, making sure I'm speaking to people. I've already done it every year as lieutenant governor, talking to people out there within the state of Wisconsin. What do they want to see from state government? What do they want us fighting for? I'm going to be listening, and I'm going to be trying to earn their vote.
Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The list of other candidates who are talking with family and friends, as they say this weekend, include Attorney General Josh Kaul.
What kind of timeline are you looking at? When do you expect to announce whether or not you're running?
Well, like I said, I don't have any announcement today. I think in the next several weeks, you'll hear from a number of people as to where they stand on things. But again, I think right now it's important, just a day after Governor Evers' announcement, to reflect on the significance of where we've come in the last 6.5 years and the importance of what comes in the next year and a half and what lies ahead beyond that as well.
Also on the list, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson and Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who said in a statement Friday, "In the weeks ahead, I will be taking steps towards entering the race for governor. The stakes are simply too high to sit on the sidelines."
And so we got in a little early as far as making the announcement that I plan on getting in, because we know that time is of the essence. And so as Democrats, we have to make sure that we're getting out there, organizing, fundraising, knocking on doors, and finding ways to energize our base and unify the party.
You got in early, but there's another name, Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, also jumping in. It's been less than 24 hours. Do you expect a crowded field, and how would you separate yourself from the crowded field?
I think I will always welcome, a primary, right? Because it not only gives us an opportunity to talk to the voters in our own community and across this entire state, but it also helps to sharpen the sword of whoever that nominee is going to be. And so I'm not sure who's all going to get into this race, but I welcome a Democratic primary.
All right, let's try to sort it all out with Charles Franklin, director of the Marquette Law School poll. Charles, seemingly moments after the governor's announcement, Sabato's crystal ball at the University of Virginia moved the rankings for the governor's race from leans Democrat to toss-up. Is that a surprise to you?
Not at all. I think in a closely divided state like we are, where statewide races are almost all within a 1 to 3 point range, it makes perfect sense that without the advantage of incumbency, this starts as a toss-up race.
As we've seen in the last couple of days, we could see a major influx of Democratic candidates to Republicans. There could be more on that side. Any idea what the polling is telling us about what Wisconsin voters may want or what they might do over the next year and a half?
I think the biggest thing is that anybody that gets in this race now that Evers is out is going to be far less well known than Evers is as an incumbent governor. So all of these candidates that are either already jumping in or being talked about or thinking about it are going to have to spend a lot of time building name recognition, because even if they're well known in their city or county or legislative district, none of them are going to be well known across the state.
Charles, we saw this social media post from former Governor Scott Walker. He posted a picture of a Trump mega hat that had 45 and 47 on it. Walker was the 45th governor. He would be the 47th governor if he ran for re-election. He wrote, interesting. I mean, there's no indication that he is mounting a bid for governor, but what do we know about his current polling in the state, just from what he put out there on social media?
Yeah, we've asked about him 3 times since he left office, and the most recent was in August of 2022. At that point, he had a 42% favorable, 49% unfavorable rating. We haven't seen him in a big fundraising role since he left the governorship, but he was a powerhouse for raising money during the time he was governor. Whether he could recover that, having been out of office for 6 going on 7 years, I think is an open question.
It's going to be a fascinating year plus, and we'll be with you for it all. Charles Franklin, director of the Marquette Law School poll. Charles, like always, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, countdown to the World Cup right here in the U.S. Billions in economic impact expected. Alex Lasry, the former Bucks exec, now CEO of the New York-New Jersey Host Committee. He's standing by with us next.